Kristy McNichol's name was once on everyone's lips, a force of nature with a smile that could light up a room and an emotional depth that captivated millions. She wasn't just an actress. She was a star whose essence seemed to flow through every character she portrayed. In the 1970s and 80s, she wasn't just Hollywood's beloved teenager. She was its beating heart. But just as quickly as she rose to fame, she vanished. No public scandal, no final bow. She disappeared into silence. For decades, no one knew what had happened to her. But now, the mystery is finally unfolding. Born on September 11, 1962, Kristy McNichol entered the world in Los Angeles, a city steeped in dreams and ambition. Her life, however, wasn't wrapped in the glamour often associated with Hollywood. Raised in a modest home, Kristy lived with her mother, Carolyn, and older brother, Jimmy. Her father left the family when Kristy was young, leaving Carolyn to shoulder the burden of raising her two children alone. Carolyn worked tirelessly as a secretary and even as a makeup saleswoman, taking on small roles in low-budget films whenever she could. Her goal was survival, not stardom. But fate has a way of intervening. On one of the film sets where Carolyn worked, Kristy and Jimmy tagged along as there was no one else to watch them. A crew member, noticing the children's vibrant personalities, casually suggested that they might be great for commercials. That simple remark opened a door none of them had ever imagined. Soon enough, both Kristy and Jimmy were auditioning for television spots. Toothpaste, cereal, soft drinks. To everyone's surprise, they began landing roles. While Jimmy was charming and effortlessly likable, Kristy stood out in a way that was hard to define. She had a spark, an emotional depth that made people stop and take notice. Even at the young age of 10, she didn't just act, she felt. Casting directors saw something unique in her. The way her expressions conveyed both light and sadness, innocence and wisdom beyond her years. By the mid-1970s, Kristy was making her mark in Hollywood, landing guest spots on popular television shows like Apple's Way and Starsky and Hutch. But it was in 1976 that her life took a dramatic turn. At just 13 years old, she was cast as Letitia Buddy Lawrence on ABC's Family, a groundbreaking drama that explored real-life issues like divorce, adolescence, and identity. Buddy, the character she brought to life, was no typical TV teen. She was sensitive, opinionated, often confused. Unlike the perfect sitcom kids of the time, Buddy felt real, raw, and complex. Kristy didn't just play her, she became her. Her performance garnered praise from critics, earning her 3 consecutive Emmy nominations for Best Supporting Actress, with wins in 1977 and 1979. Remarkable achievements for someone still in her early teens. Kristy quickly became a household name, gracing magazine covers, appearing on talk shows, and gaining the adoration of millions. She was America's little sister, the girl next door. But behind the glossy public image, her life was far from stable. While her mother managed her career, she also relied on Kristy's earnings to support the family. Kristy often felt like the grown-up in the house, a role reversal that took its toll on her. As she once put it, "My mom was the child." It was a lot of responsibility on my young shoulders. While other teenagers worried about school dances, Kristy worried about contracts, lines, and staying professional. Her days were consumed by filming, publicity, and the weight of responsibility, leaving no room for a typical teenage life. By 1980, when Family ended, Kristy had already achieved more than most actors do in a lifetime. She was respected, adored, and incredibly talented. But deep inside, she felt exhausted, empty. She had given everything to Hollywood, but Hollywood had not given her the freedom she needed. It wasn't long before the demands of fame began to take their toll. Kristy was only 18, but she had already lived a lifetime under the relentless spotlight. After Family wrapped, there was no rest, no pause. Offers poured in, and Kristy, eager to prove herself, accepted every one of them. That same year, she starred opposite Tatum O'Neal in Little Darlings, a film about 2 teenage girls from different worlds making a bet at summer camp. The movie wasn't just another teen comedy. It was a raw, honest exploration of adolescence and its confusions. Kristy's portrayal of Angel Brighteyed, a tough, street-smart girl with a deep vulnerability, was mesmerizing. Critics were blown away by her performance, with Roger Ebert calling it the kind of acting that makes you want to know what she'll do next. The movie was a hit, and Kristy became an icon, the confident, independent, yet emotionally raw teenager that everyone admired. But as always, fame came with a cost. That same year, she appeared in The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia alongside Dennis Quaid and Mark Hamill, earning one of the highest salaries ever paid to a teenage actress. In 1981, she earned a Golden Globe nomination for her role in Only When I Laugh, where she played the daughter of a recovering alcoholic. It seemed that nothing could stop her, but the cracks, though invisible to the public, were starting to show. Christy later admitted that she didn't know how to say no to directors, producers, or even her mother. Hollywood, with its endless demands, never gave her a chance to rest. She was a teenager in an adult's world, expected to perform constantly, to deliver emotion on cue. By 1982, the pressure had begun to overwhelm her. Her next project, The Pirate Movie, a lighthearted musical parody, flopped. She was even nominated for a Golden Raspberry Award for Worst Actress. A cruel twist for someone who had just been lauded as Hollywood's brightest young star. But the problem wasn't the movie. It was the immense pressure behind it. The sleepless nights, the endless expectations, the crushing anxiety. It was all eating her alive. In 1984, Christy accepted a role in Just the Way You Are, a romantic drama shot in the French Alps. Her character was a musician with a disability, learning to accept herself. A storyline that, ironically, mirrored Christy's own struggles. But by then, her mental health had reached its breaking point. Panic attacks, nightmares, and extreme weight loss became daily battles. She felt herself slipping away, not just physically, but emotionally. When she asked for help, her team told her to push through. "Don't worry," they reassured her. "We'll get through it." But the breaking point was approaching. When Christy returned from France, she was no longer the same. Doctors diagnosed her with exhaustion, anxiety, and deep emotional trauma, the result of years of suppressing her struggles. The studio behind Just the Way You Are tried to downplay the situation, calling it a chemical imbalance. But the tabloids weren't so kind. They painted her as unstable, a fallen star who couldn't handle the pressure. In truth, Christy was trying to save herself. She later said that kicking an addiction would have been easier than enduring the years of turmoil she went through. Christy eventually returned to finish the film, but by then, the light in her eyes had dimmed. The movie, released in 1984, showed a fragile beauty on screen, and the pain that people saw in her performance was all too real. She briefly tried to rebuild her career, appearing in films like Dream Lover, You Can't Hurry Love, and The Forgotten One. But the industry had moved on, and so had she. Fame, which had once been her dream, now felt like a prison. Behind closed doors, she fought insomnia, mood swings, and overwhelming sadness, which would later be diagnosed as bipolar disorder. It was her brother, Jimmy McNichol, who became her rock. When Christy's world fell apart, he never left her side. He wasn't just her brother. As he later said, "She was my kid, my best friend." Jimmy moved in with Christy, helping her navigate the darkest moments. For the first time, someone was taking care of her, not the other way around. By the mid-1980s, Christy had become a ghost in Hollywood. The cheerful, confident teenager from Family was gone. In her place was a woman struggling to reconcile who she was outside the public eye. Though she would return briefly to TV in 1988 for NBC's Empty Nest, a spin-off of The Golden Girls, her heart was no longer in Hollywood. She found stability and a place to belong in the supportive, light-hearted environment of Empty Nest. But inside, she was still struggling, still battling the emotional demons that had plagued her for years. In 1992, during the show's 5th season, Christy made a decision that shocked everyone. She walked away. Without warning or explanation, she left Empty Nest. Her publicist cited health reasons, but the true story didn't come out until 2001. Christy revealed that she had been battling manic depression, now known as bipolar disorder. In an era when mental illness was still a taboo subject, her decision to come forward was an act of quiet courage. She wanted to help others who, like her, felt trapped between fame and fragility. After her departure from Empty Nest, Christy stepped away from acting altogether. She made a few brief appearances, lending her voice to animated shows like Extreme Ghostbusters and Invasion America, but she had officially turned her back on Hollywood. When reporters asked if she would ever return, Christy smiled and said, but the tone of her voice said it all. Her time with Hollywood was over. Finally, Christy McNichol found peace. She was 39 when she left acting behind, and for the first time since childhood, she could live for herself. She began teaching acting at a private school in Los Angeles, using her years of experience to guide the next generation of performers. Teaching gave her a way to stay connected to the art she loved, but without the pressures of fame. She also took up yoga, spent time with close friends, and filled her home with animals, especially her beloved miniature dachshunds. In 2012, Christy shocked the world once again. But this time, it wasn't with a comeback. She publicly revealed that she was gay and had been living happily with her partner, Marty Allen, since the early 1990s. It wasn't a publicity stunt. It was simply her way of being honest after years of silence. Christy's decision to share her truth was an act of bravery. She wanted to help others who felt different and to stand up for those being bullied. Today, Christy McNichol lives a quiet life in Los Angeles, teaching, mentoring, and occasionally attending fan events. At 62, she has found the peace she longed for. She has made her greatest performance of all, survival. Christy's journey shows us that behind every smile we see on screen, there is a real person. Someone fighting their own battles, someone trying to live authentically. She didn't fade away. She chose to walk away, and in doing so, she found herself. And that, in the end, is the greatest story of all.